Drop the feeling or the sense that you have to be someone for someone else and be the person that you want to be for you.
All right, welcome everyone to the most yellow show you know. This is the What You Don't Hear podcast. I am your host. My name is Ross Theisen. I am an Ohio native that now calls the creative city of Columbus my home. I am a creative director, a video director. I don't know, a creative video director. How many name tags does one person need? Either way, I'm a maker and doer of many things, but most importantly, though, in this instance, I'm a podcaster and a guy who loves to talk. Now, really quick, before we go any further, quick reminders for you. This is currently a totally listener-supported podcast, supported by people just like you. So, really quick, if you haven't yet, or if you're new around here, I beg of thee to toss a subscription to us over on iTunes, toss us a follow on Spotify, as well as hit all the socials at WYDHpod. The interactions, the reviews, the shares, it all seriously adds up and makes me feel like I can keep this show going and share more wonderful conversations like I have for you today. And that is a chat with my friend Mark Pasternack. Now, oddly enough, I actually met Mark for the very first time, I believe. The first time ever, along with the rest of the video community guys over there on their podcast, when I was a guest sometime last year. And we all hit it off, and since then have had many fun conversations about the world of video and business. So while I share my thoughts on the video world with Mark and the gang on their show, I felt it was only right to bring Mark in on this one and capture his story, and we finally made it happen. Now, Mark is a corporate filmmaker, a brand builder, as you heard, a podcast host, and is someone who really focuses in on how people can build themselves up in the videography world and take it from a hobby to a career. So, of course, we talk about all of that here amongst tons of other things. So, let's just dive in. This is a fun one. Here it is, episode 30 of What You Don't Hear in my conversation with Mark Pasternack. Well, dude, if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Dude, let's dive in, man.
We can toss that script aside and we can just chat.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Dude, this is the official. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, I appreciate you being down to do this. Been a long time coming.
Yes.
I feel like, even though we've only known each other for a year-ish.
Probably a year.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But we met via your podcast.
That's true. Yeah.
So this is me returning the favor finally after all this time. It's taken a while. We've had to reschedule this a couple times.
We have.
But now we're here, and I'm stoked to make it happen.
I'm stoked to be on it, man. It's totally different than my podcast.
I know, that's what we were talking. We were talking pre-pod, and you were like, "Dude, ours are just like straight to it, just like no longer than 40 minutes." And I'm glad you said like I'm geared up for like 3 hours. If that's what it takes for this one.
We might need an intermission.
Listen, I told you, hey, if you got to go to the bathroom or something, you can just call it. Look to the camera and just be like, cut it, and I'll make sure I leave that in. And
I was going to say, the viewers just going to have to wait.
Of course. Well, this is live streaming everywhere right now. No edits. That's how I do these. Dude, for real, though, I'm so happy to be sitting down with you and doing this. We haven't seen much of each other in the last year. I mean, no one's seen much of anyone, right? But I think the last time we chatted on Zoom. We chatted on Zoom a couple times. Mm-hmm. And even for your podcast, obviously, we did it over the internet. So I'm glad we're getting to like sit down, really dive in face to face, because the thing that I'm kind of alluding to here is no matter how much we've talked in the past, I feel like there's always been another point in which we've been talking right? It's usually always like talking shop, talking business, something like that. Or again, me sharing my story and all that sort of stuff on your guys' podcast. But now I'm excited to sit you down and actually, I genuinely think, get to know you better for this show. That's what I'm excited to do. I want to dive in and I want to learn all the things about Mark. So let's just kick it off in maybe a little bit of a formal way.
All right.
How would you describe who you are, what you do? For anybody listening who doesn't know who you are, who's Mark? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. So I'm a corporate filmmaker. as well as, how would I phrase it? As a person who's really inspired to change the way that the current video industry is set up.
I love that. And honestly, that's so much of what I feel like we're going to dig into. So let's just do that right off the bat. So everything you guys have been trying to do and aiming to do and working towards with the video community.
Yes.
Right? That's the podcast. That's everything that we've kind of been alluding to here. Tell me kind of like what's your guys' like what's the vision for that, right? We're talking about like I want to change the way the video community is built and all that sort of stuff. Like run me through that.
Yeah.
What's your guys' goals there?
Absolutely. So to like take you back a little bit. So I've been a filmmaker for 10 years and in many different forms, but mainly in the corporate space, from advertising to industrial videos to now I call it sales enablement, very like business to business type of video. But throughout that journey, what I've experienced myself and in conversations with others experienced is just a lack of community and a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding about how the business works and what it actually takes to create a sustainable career as a solopreneur, as a filmmaker. So for us, probably about 3.5 years ago, I shut down a agency that I was running, a video agency, and was just trying to figure out like, man, what's next? You know, like it was just, not to go off a super tangent, but like what I figured out in my life is that it's super easy for me to stop things and hard to start things. Like I know when I need to make a transition or when I need to change, but what that change is often takes the longest. So I was sitting down just like journaling and figuring out like, you know, I got really burnt out with the agency lifestyle and it was just like, what is next? Because it wasn't that I didn't like video, but I didn't like how I had it set up. So I knew I needed to make a change. And so I was just like writing out all the things that I really liked about my job, that I really liked, you know, about working for myself and the people around me. And then like it really just dawned on me was like, it's the people, you know, it's the community. It's my best friends that I've known since high school that I bring on projects with me. And so, you know, I was calling them up because we were doing some projects together and it was just like, where's the community as a filmmaker? And not just as a narrative filmmaker, not just as a corporate filmmaker, not just as someone who makes music videos, you know, but as like the solopreneur filmmaker. Where is the place that you go to get that knowledge to start a sustainable career? Because it's not just about success with money, but what I found it's more success in your mental health, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and really that's where community comes down to is like your human health.
Now, so obviously there's so many different things I want to jump into, but I want to stick with like the video community stuff right now of like
Perfect.
How the brand started. Because I mean, and forgive me if I mean, clearly it's a podcast. We both know I'm going to ask questions that maybe I already know the answers to.
Go for it.
Or if I asked you things that you're like, dude, we talked about this that one time over lunch, there's a good chance I probably just forgot. So it's still not only new to the listeners, it's new to me too, probably. When did like the actual, like the video community, the brand start? And why did you guys start? Is it literally like, was it podcast first? It was like, we want to start this podcast and it's called this and then we'll branch out? Or was it like, here's the brand and our goal and it happens to come with the podcast along the way? You know,
it started about 2 years ago.
Okay.
What are we in, February? Okay. Yeah, February 1st. It was about February 1st 2 years ago when it was like we birthed this idea that we wanted to spread, you know, positive mindset, positive business, and positive community into the industry. Mm-hmm. And the podcast definitely followed shortly thereafter. I think like we always had an idea of like, well, let's start a course. You know, like let's take all of our business knowledge and put it into like an 8-week business blueprint.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I think as part of like, well, how do we build a community? And it's like, we all listen to podcasts. We love podcasts. So we started interviewing entrepreneurs, creatives, a little bit of everyone. And then pretty soon after transitioned into just filmmakers. And that's where we've kind of gone to today.
Now, the newest thing that has spawned into that I definitely want to jump into is the coaching program.
Yeah, absolutely.
So lay that out, because I mean, we really haven't talked about that and like how that came to be and everything.
Yes.
It almost sounds like a kind of a full circle thing. Like you're starting with like, hey, we want to start this brand to build a community, maybe make some sort of a program, and now you are literally making coaches a part of the brand.
Absolutely.
And so lay that out. Like how did the coaching program pop up?
So we started with the mission to empower filmmakers to grow their business through community. That was like to answer your question in a very short form, you know. And then we made a big shift in our podcast where we only interviewed filmmakers, and it brought a lot of positivity to our vision and to our mission of empowering filmmakers and creating this community, because we kept having coaches be like, we kept having podcast guests be like, so what are you guys doing? You know, and we'd kind of explain the like different beta groups that we've been mentoring, the different courses we're creating, and they're like, well, how can I get involved? And we're like, you know, made our heads turn a little bit. And then we're like, I mean, obviously we want more people involved. That's the whole idea, you know, and that's why it's called the video community and not Mark Pasternack or Eric Irvin or Caleb Knoll. Like we want it to transcend just our own personal brands.
Right.
So then we had all these experienced, successful filmmakers be like, hey, how do I get involved in a community like this? Because there is a need in the industry for this. Like I didn't have much guidance, you know, when I started out. So, you know, I'd love to give back. And that's a big pillar of ours, is to give back and have a greater impact and leave the industry better than where it was. So we're like, and kind of just like it was one of those things you just rolled into.
Yeah.
It was, well, you know what? We've got all this material. We've got all the back end support. We've set up everything that someone would need to start a coaching program and add it to their business. And we've tried to do it and we've enjoyed it. But what we've enjoyed more is connecting with these other filmmakers and really be able to spread the web of that community and have a bigger impact. So we partner with experienced filmmakers to create a mentorship program.
Yeah. Do you feel like people often like overlook the idea of a mentor or a quote unquote coach? Like even outside of like the business realm, because I mean like the phrase, I feel like this has probably always been around. I just recently learned about it in the last couple of years, but you know, the idea of like life coach and stuff like that, where you hear those things. You could even hear mentor, you could hear video coach, you know, whatever it is. And I feel like sometimes that throws a lot of people off, but I feel like a lot of people don't look deeper into the like, well, what is the real value of this person? And are you willing to learn?
Oh, I hated them. When I first started, It was like, this is bullshit, you know, and it's like, it's not bullshit. But I think you get to a point in your life when you've struggled enough to understand that you need an outside perspective of somebody who is where you want to be and has a track record of success in that area to get to that next stage that you're looking to get to.
I feel like it just kind of comes down to the idea of like, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, like you and I have talked about that. Like I'm bad at asking for help. I hate ever being that guy who like asks for favors or feels like I'm using somebody, even if that person is like so willing to be like, dude, just let me know and we will make this happen. Or like, I can help you. Or like, yes, I am totally open for that conversation. And I know it's not like exclusive to creative people. Everybody usually is pretty like,
but us creatives think we're special.
And it's like, it's even harder, I feel like, to ask for help, because especially when you're going about something on your own, like being an entrepreneur, starting a business, a brand, being creative, a freelancer, whatever you want to chalk it up to, I feel like there's almost this like extra weight of like, you feel like if I'm not doing it on my own and accomplishing it, I'm failing. because, and I say I feel that way because I felt that way, where I'm like, I do want to ask for help, and I understand that that person is willing to help me, but damn it, like, I just feel like if I do ask for help, that means I'm wrong. That means I don't know what I'm doing.
And where do you think that comes from?
I mean, for sure, like, the simple answer, I feel like, is just confidence. Confidence is hard for a lot of people to come into, but I don't know.
Why?
I feel like it's all, like, it's almost this, like, invisible weight that I feel like a lot of us, like, add to our shoulders that is very unneeded.
Where do we add it? Where's it come from?
And right. And like, when that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, it is really this, like, invisible weight that, you know, it circles back around into, like, the whole, like, hey, just be confident. And do you really believe in yourself? Do you really know what you're trying to do and have the clarity and all that sort of stuff? But for some reason, there is a lot of times, like, that invisible anchor that's just like, oh my God, if I ask for help, that means I'm admitting failure. That means I'm admitting that I'm not good enough. And then you get into that internal monologue of, like, you're kind of always telling yourself you're not good enough anyway, even when you are maybe confident, or even when you are like, I got that dope win. I feel like a lot of people, it's very easy for them to be like, yeah, but, like, well, it's not this, or it's not that. So I feel like everybody always has that internal monologue running that is at constant battle with anything that's good. And I feel like that internal monologue gets heightened when it comes to the point of asking for help, because it's like, are you serious? Like, how are you really gonna, like, put it on that other person's shoulders? Like, you're gonna put your burden on other person's shoulders. But again, when you do, you realize it's not that big of a deal anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything that you don't practice. It's a muscle. Mm-hmm. And especially if you grow up in a environment where that's not promoted, it's a lot harder to practice that muscle, especially when you get into adulthood.
Yes. Now, okay, so there's just so many different branches that I want to jump into, but one thing that I want to touch base on with you, because this is something we've talked about, like, in normal conversation, is, you know, you're building this video community, building the brand to give back, to show people, like, hey, let's connect and work with each other, right?
Absolutely.
I don't like so much of the industry mindset.
Oh.
And we've had conversations about this. So I guess my biggest question, to maybe just kick this off with, is, like, why do you think that there's even a need for the phrasing industry mindset? Like, I say that, you know what I'm talking about. Anybody who's listening to this, who is involved in any sort of industry, can kind of be like, oh, when you say industry mindset, I understand the type of person you're talking about. Why do you think that exists? And is such a, like, I just, like, you know, the gatekeepers and the people who, like, make it to a certain point and then they don't want to give back, or they don't want to see other people grow, or, you know, it's not even about taking opportunities from other people. It's just about, it's you gain that ego at some point. You gain that, like, almost inability to communicate with your fellow creatives at some point. Why do you think that exists?
Again, I think, like, we are a product of our environment. So it had to start somewhere with one person making one choice and one decision and influencing another person, and that just having that trickle down snowball effect. And that's why, like, what we believe so strongly in what we're trying to accomplish, and we know we will, because if you flip the script and instead of that competitive mindset, the industry, what'd you call it?
Just industry mindset.
Industry mindset. Like, yeah, like, I think a lot of us have seen the negative side of that, but it's only negative because it's on a cycle. It's on it's like a downward spiral that just needs to be stopped. And the only thing that can stop it is more and more positive people and more positive communities.
Well, and that's, like, I guess it's also, it's probably because, like, that, you know, negative cycle, it becomes so normal.
Absolutely.
Like, it just becomes a normal thing where it's like, oh yeah, this person is hard to talk to. This person won't communicate with you.
It's like, well, this isn't going to change.
Yeah. And
well, it can, but you have to change.
Right.
You have to be the change.
And create that, like, positive trickle down effect.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like that's, like, an uphill battle? Do you feel like that's a difficult thing to like readjust that current cycle that so much of this is stuck in? And of course, with any sort of negativity in the world, will it ever completely go away? Probably not. But what sort of like energy can be shifted more in the positive direction where the majority is better than what it was before? So it's like, do you feel like that's a hard battle in the creative world?
Man, it's hard in the beginning. Like if once you recognize it, like once I recognized I need to make a change in my company, or I need to shift the projects that I'm working with, or you know what, I might need to filter through some of my friendships and create new ones. Yeah, that's really hard. But once you do it, right, you're a product of your environment, and you put other people around you who share those same values and those same beliefs, then you start turning those 80,000 thoughts you have a day in your head from mainly negative to hopefully mainly positive. And it doesn't mean you don't deal with them anymore. They still come up, you know, but you've got a community, you have an environment of people who are going to keep you accountable to be positive and have a you know, a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
And you're much better equipped.
Exactly.
Right. So maybe for somebody listening, explain, of course, like in your opinion, I'm sure anybody can explain it however it is, what it means to them. Let's dive into like the idea of a growth mindset.
Absolutely.
So lay that on me.
Yeah.
What is a growth mindset? Maybe for anybody listening who's like, never heard of that. You say this positive mindset stuff all the time and blah, blah, blah. Like, what is this? Another mindset I have to learn?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's think of an EKG, think of a sound wave, right? It only goes up and down, right? You can either be growing, you're either growing or you're either dying. Like we say fixed mindset and we say like, oh, I've plateaued. I don't think there's such thing as a plateau. A plateau just means you're living dead. You're going to go down. I don't think you can just like coast. You know, that's in my opinion, that's my belief.
Right.
So a growth mindset is a mindset where you're always looking to challenge yourself. You're always looking to grow, whether that's personally, professionally, whether that's a new hobby, a new skill, whether that's within your niche, within your filmmaking. You know, you're going to work on this thing, or like I'm a runner, you know, and it's like, okay, I could work on sprints. I could work on long distance. I could work on my mile time. I could work on my heart rate. You know, there's always something that you're looking to fine tune, you know, or something that you're looking to not even get better at, so to speak, but try to understand in a deeper way.
So I want to figure out where all this comes from, because again, we've talked so much about like creativity every time we've met up, and in the current, we've talked so much about the current, but I want to know and dive into like how do you get to the Mark that's sitting across from me at the table right now telling me all these things about like, hey, like, yeah, the struggle can be hard, but you can push through and you can figure this out, and growth mindset and all this sort of stuff. Now, I want to ask you about like the business and
yeah, we can get to that later.
All that sort of stuff. But I want to take us like, let's just go all the way back, then we'll catch ourselves up. So are you from Columbus?
I am.
Okay, so born and raised in Columbus.
Yeah, Westerville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I live right now. So look at that. Okay. So what's childhood like? What's growing up for Mark Pasternack like? Is it super normal, average? Creativity is everywhere? Is it like I was super into sports, then I picked up a camera? Like, tell me the story. What was it like?
Yeah, man. I got 3 older brothers. So family of 6, pretty middle-class family. You know, grew up in the best suburb in America, like best Midwestern, you know, suburban America, as I like to call it. Like if you're going to live in the Midwest, in the suburbs, Westerville's the place to be. You know, I was always like an awkward artsy kid, man, or like into skating or BMX. So like I hung around kids, and you know, my brother and I would like build wooden ramps, and like he'd build them, and then I'd launch myself off of them.
Somebody's got to be the test dummy, right?
So you know, I'm not coordinated. I can't play sports. I could run. That's about it.
Right.
So you know, I think in 8th grade I picked up a guitar. And I think that was the first time I was like, man, I love this. Like we had a piano in our house, but it just never caught my attention. I picked up a guitar, and then my parents are like, all right, if we're going to buy you this guitar, you have to commit to taking guitar lessons. Because I was one of those kids that, like, I'd try something for 2 weeks, and I'd move on, and then move on and keep moving on.
Right.
You know? It was hard for me to, like, find a lane, stay in the lane, and, you know, that probably has a lot to do with where I am now, where I'm like, oh, no, we need to stay in a lane. We need to focus. You know, even with my kids, it's like, oh, no, you're not getting out of your lane. And then I was in bands in high school, played some classic rock, was playing rhythm guitar in a 6-person band. But quickly realized, like, okay, I like music, but it's just not my thing. Like, I'm only so good at it, and my passion only takes me so far. You know, when I was surrounded by those 5 other bandmates, I could tell, like, man, they just dove so deep into their instruments, and it was like, give me a G, C, and a D chord, and I'm like happy, you know?
Right.
And so I started running the soundboard, and I started booking the shows, and I was like, man, this is fun. And I was like, there's not a lot of people who are doing this. I could find a niche here. So in high school, I started to book shows, and that was my summer job. So I'd like rent out a space and then find bands and bring them in and sell tickets. And
so, sorry to interrupt you, but again, this is a thing I don't know if I'm just forgetting or not, but I didn't know you were involved in like a music scene before diving into this. I might be forgetting that completely, because actually, no, I am forgetting that, because I remember you making mention of it when I was on your guys' podcast, but it was a very like casual, like,
yes,
because I think we made the connection. I think it was you that pointed out, you were like, there's a lot of like creatives that we've talked to that were involved in music first.
Gosh,
like
absolutely.
It's like they went through the music community first,
Yep.
then they were like, okay, someone's got to film these people and take photos. So I guess it's me. Like, now I'll pick up a camera. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, you know, you said that almost the creative side of music maybe wasn't necessarily what caught you, but you immediately kind of went to like, okay, I can kind of find my niche in this, you know, run thing, like actually like running the sound. Then you turn that into like, how can I book shows? Was that, you know, was it a part of you? Like, was it just teenage you being like, I want to be more involved in the music community and music is dope? Or was there like a little spark of like, hey, I'm going to go into a business person one day, and this is kind of like the start of it. I want to be like a brand builder and a business person.
Yeah, you know, I think my dad has a lot to do with that, because
Okay, what's Dad do?
So Dad grew up in like rural Cleveland area, you know, in probably a lower class household, and he just worked his way up through college. Got, you know, I don't know if he almost flunked out, but I love it. Like, I love his story because like it's such a comeback kid story.
Yeah.
You know, like rural America, lived across the train tracks, like literally like small tiny house, and he went to college, almost flunked out his freshman year, and then he like got his degree, and then he got his master's, and he got his PhD, and he was a civil engineer and worked his way up pretty much with the same company for 25 years to becoming a president, and then eventually selling the company, and then has kind of worked for those others. So it's like he started out as a blue collar worker, you know, and kind of shifted into that white collar.
Right.
So he was really, really, really big growing up in teaching us like how to budget, how to save, how to make money. So he didn't, you know, he wouldn't buy us anything. Whereas like we go out with my mom and she'd be like, you want candy? You know?
right.
She was like the people pleaser.
You're like,
you know?
hey, Mom, you want to go to the store? Like, Dad, you stay here. Like, it's cool.
Yeah. You know, and like, it wasn't a bad thing, but it's just like, he made us work for it.
Yeah.
So I think like ever since I was like 7 or 8, I was slinging newspapers or selling Skittles on the school bus. You know?
You had that example set
Absolutely.
in like the family household of like, oh, this is what hard work looks like, and now that's kind of being instilled in me. So like it was like a natural fit of when something like that pops up, you're like, I know the process of how to go about this. I know kind of what I want out of this. It's not just like a, yeah, sure, I don't know, whatever happens. Like you could identify, this is what I need out of this, or what I want out of this.
Yeah, you know, and I didn't really realize the amazing impact that had, especially now as being a father myself, like what you can instill on children to get them to think that way early on. Like I wanted a BMX bike, right? And I don't know, it was like $400 or $500. My dad's like, all right, you work for it. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, figure it out. So like got in the newspaper and looked for jobs and ended up signing up for the Dispatch every morning, like 5 a.m. because I was like, oh man, this pays like, I don't know, a couple $100 a month.
Dude, that is like the classic story. Like that is literally like the story of like, I wanted a bike, I had to work for it, and now I'm slinging the newspaper to get the bike. Like that is literally, that's the step-by-step like story. I love that.
I did it for 3 months, got enough money to buy the bike, and then I stopped.
You were like, I'm done. I got it now. I'm good. I don't need to sling these. So what did mom do? Were mom or dad, either of them like creative, or was it like where was everyone like business mentality? Was it just sort of a casual like dad was the biggest push, or what?
Yeah, I think like my mom has a creative spark in her. And I would argue my dad does too, but we fought a lot growing up because I was much more of a creative, like free-spirited kid, and he was much more of an engineer business person.
Of course, yeah.
Like take engineering and business and put it together, and in initially there's not much creativity there. Mm-hmm. But I think in any industry, in any place, there can be creativity. You just have to find it.
Right. And of course, you can do anything in a creative way.
Exactly.
I think, I feel like I guess I don't know if guilty is the right word, but I feel like it's very easy for somebody to listen to this podcast and like the word creative gets thrown around all the time. And I feel like it's very easy to misunderstand like what that word means, where I feel like when someone says that, they're like, oh, I'm not a painter or a drawer, or I don't pick up a camera, so I guess I'm not creative, bro. Like, thanks for telling. When it's like, no, you can do anything in a creative way.
A business plan is super creative.
Exactly. So to catch back up with the shows.
Yes.
So you start booking the shows, and you like, is that just like a instant, just like, hey, I've got enough friends in bands that I can now start like throwing a show at a venue and I know people are going to show up? What was there like a struggle point there where you were like, oh damn, like
no, for sure. I mean, we started playing at Scarlet and Gray, our band did, and since there were 6 of us, we had 6 different micro networks to sell tickets to.
Yeah.
So it was like our greatest strength and our greatest weakness, because to get 6 people together to practice was like pulling teeth.
Now, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, you're fine.
What time frame is this?
Freshman, sophomore year in high school.
And what year would that be? Like what? So like
12-9. I graduated in 2009.
Okay, so like mid 2000s.
Mid 2000s.
I was just trying to align it with like
05,
any
06,
scene
07.
I would have eventually been a part of, or something. I'm like trying to see like when that kind of like lines up. Okay. So mid to late 2000s is when this is happening.
Absolutely.
Was there and this is a genuine question because I got into the music scenes a couple years after that.
Okay.
What was the scene like then? Was there a scene, or was it just like, hey, some people in bands sometimes play the local bars? Like,
no, man, there was definitely a scene. We were the odd kids out because we were like, our band, like our inspirations either came from like Dave Matthews Band, Pearl Jam, or like classic rock.
Yeah.
Or Coldplay.
Right.
So like you've got this 6-piece that's like modern classic rock next to all these like heavy metal screamo bands.
Yeah, that's literally why I asked, because I know the next wave of what a music scene would have been in those following years would have been like metalcore, hardcore. Like, I mean, those things have always been around, but really when I say like the scene music, a couple of years after that is really when that wave picked up. So that's even why I'm like trying to figure out like, okay, when that was. So yeah, you probably were like, as that stuff starting, it's like, who are these like soft rockers over here in the corner?
Exactly. Like, we definitely stood out. That's for sure.
So back to the original, like I just made us trail off so much.
That's fine.
To the original thing of like, what was it like trying to figure out how you booked those shows? Like what, again, like was the scene healthy enough where you were like, I know we can get people in a room if I book the right bands, or was it like I don't know. I just need to find some friends and get them here.
Man, it was all about the bands.
Yeah.
Because it started like, okay, we would start playing shows and we'd be like, ooh, we really like those guys. And we know they have fans. So it's like, well, let's get them on a show. So I remember some shows, it was like, this is awesome. And everybody wants to hear the awesome stories, right?
Of
and
course,
it's like,
yeah.
those are great, but like, I'd probably do, like I did it 3 summers in a row, and the first summer might have like 5 or 6 shows, the next one had 10, next one had like 18 or 19 shows. And definitely in the last 2 summers I did that, there were like 2 or 3 shows at least where like 7 people showed up, and that was the band's and the band's mom.
Yeah.
you know, like
those classic shows.
Those classic shows, but I look back on those as like the best shows because those are the shows that gave me a backbone.
Of course.
That made me like I feel it right now, that same feeling of like, is anybody going to show up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they don't. And then the band still have to play. And then it's just like this, like, it's loud in the room, but it's awkward silence the whole entire time.
In between every song, everyone's just like, hey, can you throw out an order of chicken nuggets back there? Thanks. Like,
any requests?
Yeah. Hurry up. That's the only request you get from the back of the room. So during that time, what was the balance of like, I'm doing this to try and make this a business? Or was it like, this is a hobby that I'm still taking seriously, but it's sort of just a hobby? Like, what was it? Like, was your goal at one time, like, I want to be a sound engineer or a show promoter?
Absolutely.
Like, okay.
That was my goal.
So it was like an all-in sort of like, this is the thing I am trying to do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And from like a personal standpoint, it was like me against my dad. And now we're best friends, just to like preface this.
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
at that time, it was like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Now, I know I keep asking you one question, then I ask another and another and another.
Get it together.
So I know, dude, damn it. I was on your podcast, now you're on mine, and it's falling apart. So let's honestly dive into the dad stuff a little bit.
Great.
I know you just said it's not the end of the world. You love your dad, everything's great. Mm-hmm. But at that point in time, sounds like there was an imbalance. You know, it was kind of you against your dad.
Yeah.
Of like, no, I want to do this, but I want to do that. What was that like? What was that push back and forth like? I mean, explain that to me.
Yeah, I think he wanted to set us up with the best chance to succeed in life, whatever that was for each of us, because we all took different routes for sure. But I think he wanted to he wanted to put us in the best position to have success, and however that was measured, but like put us in the best position possible.
Of course.
Which now, as a father myself, I'm like, oh man, like I get that.
You're like, I get this.
But there's got to be a balance there. But like,
right.
I've really dove deep into that because I realize, especially when you're doing a lot of mindset and community work and coaching, it's like you have to understand your why, and you have to understand like why were you driven at different points in your life to do something and be successful at it. And like the music for me in high school and then going to Belmont University for music production, that was like a large part of that was like, no, I'm going to prove it. Yes, to myself, but also like I'm going to prove it to my dad that like I can make this a career.
Yeah.
Now,
was his pushback because it was an odd career, or was it like that it was there like an unsureness of like, you were like, I have to try this to see if it works, where he's like, no, if you're a real engineer, not a sound engineer, if you're this, then I know it's structured enough that it can work. Like, what was his like reasoning for the pushback?
I think the career path was well more defined in engineering, or in any of those, majors than it was in music or the arts or like anything like that. It's, it's like the road less traveled, so it's riskier. Right. And I think now being a dad, it's like, yeah, man, that's such a it's such a hard mindset to be like, I want my daughters to like go pave the road, and like go do their own thing. But at the same time, you want to throw a safety net out there.
Of course, you're going to be worried, of course. And that's probably why he was giving you the pushback. He was just worried. It wasn't that he was like, music sucks, don't do that, like you're an idiot. Yeah. It was just like, I'm kind of worried. And especially coming from his background.
Absolutely.
Like, I did this thing. I've got a proven track record of like working hard gets you here. Now I understand you can work hard at anything, but the whole music industry thing is a little bit crazy. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. And like think about generationally, they didn't really have entrepreneurship wasn't really a thing.
Right.
You know, like they didn't have like this option. They didn't see that like we did in our generation as we grew up. It was like YouTubers. Oh
Yeah,
man, they're
yeah.
making six figures. You know, like they're making a lot of money. You're doing this or doing that.
Well,
Like
and back then it comes from like the classic, like the white picket fence scenario. Of like
Absolutely.
you graduate, you get the job, or you graduate high school, college, get the job, get the family, get the rad house, work super hard, become a manager, maybe, you know, become the president, whatever it is, like of the company. So yeah, that does make sense.
Yep.
It is that kind of like generational difference. Now, sibling wise, was it like, were you like the black sheep, quote unquote, of the family, where you were like going kind of dipping your toes into the arts, or like did everyone, all the other siblings, like, yes, I will be an attorney, Dad, look at me, or did everyone just sort of like pick super different routes? So it
no,
was
I
just
think
chaos?
like the oldest two did a bit more traditional routes, and then my brother Matt right above me. I say he paved a lot of the way for me because he went into design and
Okay.
I forget what he went to Ohio State and maybe just and majored in business, but then like he just went to his advisor one day and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna study graphic design." I didn't tell my dad. It was like 2 or 3 months
right.
later, like my dad gets a phone call from Ohio State, like, "Yeah, we need you to pay the bill for Matt and his graphic design major." My dad's like, "What?"
You got the wrong kid. It's the wrong family.
So I think like Matt and I played off each other a lot
Mm-hmm.
growing up, and like in that creative sense.
So there was at least a little bit of a cushion.
Oh,
from-
absolutely. And like my mom's a bleeding heart, and so she would always be like, "Go after your dreams, like, do what makes you happy." And it wasn't that my dad wasn't, but just his environment and the way that he was raised, security was much more of a focus.
Again, and that worry comes up.
Absolutely.
The worry. I'm not a parent, and I know you can give the perspective of a parent, but even speaking from like what you've told me about your dad, it literally is just that worry of like, what is my kid going to do? My parents and family did the same thing when it was like, yeah, I don't want to work at this factory job. I want to learn graphic design, and I want to start a clothing line, and I want to be in bands and work with bands and all this other stuff. Like, it took proof at every new level to show them, like, of course, it's not because they don't want me to be creative. I was always that artsy kid growing up, like the overly artsy kid all the time. So they knew it was there. But when you get into the real world level of things, when you're becoming an adult and you're growing up, of course, they just want what is not best for you, because only you can decide what's best for you, but they want what's safest for you, maybe. What they can see as safest for you, of like, hey, maybe take this route. I don't know. What are you talking about, that freelance thing? That sounds like no money is involved. And then I'm like, well, little do you know, you're right. There's not a lot of money involved, but one day it'll come back around. So obviously the pushback from Dad wasn't enough for you to say, I'm not going to chase any of this stuff. I'm not going to go book shows. I'm not going to do any of that. What was like, I guess, how do I want to ask this? You mentioned that you went to college for music.
Yes.
Was that in any way like a leverage sort of thing of like, I will go to college to learn the right things, but it's still going to be in the field that I want it to be? Or was it literally just strictly like you weren't even worried about appeasing Dad at that point, and it was like, this is my passion, I'm going to learn it?
It was a compromise.
Yeah.
Because Belmont had an audio engineering program, and then they had a music business program with an emphasis in production. So that like fulfilled both of our desires. Mm-hmm. Because he was never just like, no, no, no. He would always give parameters. So he'd be like, I don't understand your music thing. I accept that. You do what you want to do, but you have to like go to class.
Yeah.
You've got to maintain a 3.0, or else, we're gonna cut some of this this music stuff that I don't fully grasp.
Right. Right. So what was that like? What was college like? Was it this awesome thing?
Man, I
of
loved
like,
it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Belmont was amazing.
And do you feel like, I asked that because, I mean, some people at this part of their story where they get into college for the thing they love, they're like immediately drained of all the love for it because it becomes something different, when you get into those fields. I feel like feel like there's two ways you can often lose passion for something, where it's either it's not just you choosing to do it on your own, it's someone teaching you the right way to do the things that can make you be like, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. Or the other option is like when it becomes like the job part of things, when it's like, oh wait, this turned into work now. Like, did you experience any of that in college? Or I mean, you said it was awesome, so I assume not.
Yeah, I mean, so I did audio. I did, business with an emphasis in audio. So I took all the audio classes I could just so I can get into the studios, and we're in the studios 4 or 5 nights a week, and then went to, obviously went to class and all of that. And I mean, yeah, I worked my butt off, but I loved it, because for me it was like, it was that or nothing. Like, what else am I going to do? Go get a desk job? For me, that was like, no, that's not an option.
Right.
So as far as like that goes, I think it was great because it was very specialized in audio engineering. And I got to have like hands-on learning. I got to record bands. I got to be in the music industry, in the heart of Nashville. Like, it's a great, great culture for that. Yeah.
So, right now you're not an audio engineer.
No, I'm not.
So, when does that change happen? Or does that take us too far ahead in the timeline?
No.
Is that like, I guess, take me to when like you graduate college and now it's time to like, I'm going to find a job in audio engineering.
Yeah.
Like, what does that transition
No,
like?
so I only did 2 years at Belmont, actually.
Okay.
And I think like I got enough taste for what the life would be like as an audio engineer. And I don't think I could have explained it exactly back then, but like reflecting upon it, there were two main things that I realized about a lot of audio engineers after finding a lot of them and learning from them. Is one, you work a lot of hours. And so a big dream of mine was to have a family. And so it was like, okay, well, how can I scale this for the rest of my life and have a family and be involved in that family? And then that kind of led to the second one of like entrepreneurship. How do I scale being an audio engineer? And not just for the sake of like growth, but like, all right, I understand if I'm going to have a lot of kids, and I want to live the lifestyle that I want to live, it's going to, it's going to require so many resources. So I kind of just struggled with that, and was like, I love this, but I can't see a long-term future with it. And so it was like, well, what's next?
Right.
Like I said earlier, like it was like, it's so easy for me to recognize when I need to change something, but then like I've got to figure out what's next.
So was that transition difficult? Was there a period where you were like, I need to find what's next, but I have no idea.
Okay. Absolutely. So I came back to Ohio State. I switched majors 4 times, ended up in communication.
Okay.
And like, it was 2 years of just trying to wander and figure out, what am I going to do?
So was that like, was the whole switching majors thing just like, it could be a mixture of these things, but like, was it like, I'm trying to find the career, or was it I'm trying to find the new thing I'm passionate about enough to make a career? Like, was it a mix of everything?
Absolutely.
Like,
it was like, I still know I don't want a desk job.
Right. It wasn't just like I'm chasing the piece of paper.
Because like, so I moved back and I worked at Promo West Productions for 3 years.
Oh, you worked at Promo West. I didn't know that either.
I got a lot, man.
That's okay. Okay. So what did you do?
Sorry if I'm not tying this all together,
Dude,
so
spring the stuff on me because it just gives us new things to branch out into.
So I actually interned there in high school. I was a marketing intern my junior year in high school. I just have like always found my way into situations where I'm often the youngest person, and I don't know if that takes me back being the youngest child in my family.
Right.
But then, so I stayed in contact with them. They knew I was at Belmont, and probably like 6 months before I moved home, I started taking some contracting gigs with them, doing post-production audio for their TV show. And then I moved back here and went to Ohio State, and while I was there, worked for them for a couple years. So that's kind of what led me into video, really. Here's a nice transition for you,
go.
And because it was me as one audio person and like 5 or 6 video people. And so they taught me video, and I taught them audio. And then at the same time, I'm 2 years at Ohio State wandering, My brother, who went to Ohio State, started an advertising agency, and they needed some video. And I was like, oh, well, I could mix video and audio, and a lot of video guys don't know audio. And I could take it to the commercial space and make a lot of money.
Right.
And it's not just about the money, but like, wow, I could take my passion for audio, now my new passion for video, my passion for entrepreneurship, my passion for people, and put it all together. Oh, here's a new career path.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you pick up video from the other people at Promo West that you're working with. You eventually graduate, yeah?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And what'd you graduate in? What was it? What did it end up being?
I forget, man. Nothing. It's communications, which is like, we talk a lot about how you don't need to go to college to be a filmmaker, But communications, I don't know. I probably passively learned some skills for sure.
Right. So did everything line up to where as soon as you're leaving college, you're already like working with brother's advertising agency, or was there like a gap there where it's like working some odd jobs or still doing sound, or was it just like Promo West to advertising agency, like seamless transition?
So I was still working at Promo West. I got married 3 weeks after I graduated. The day after, moved back down to Nashville and built a studio.
Built a studio.
Okay. Started a company that was supposed to be artist development.
Okay.
So I was doing corporate freelance, but I still I still had the itch for music. And met my wife when I was up at Ohio State, and then we got married and moved back down there. A buddy had a house there and had an unfinished basement, and he was like, "Yo, you want to build the studio? I'll buy the supplies. You buy, any of the people that you need help to build the studio." Right. So for 4 months, I built the studio and did artist development for almost a year, and then got some bigger corporate video projects, and kind of realized the same thing with artist development as I did with audio engineering. Was like, man, I love it, but I don't know the stats, but it's got to be like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 people who move to Nashville actually make it their career.
Right.
And so it's like there's no repeat business. There's more or less not going to be an album 2 unless you work with the right people. And if I knew what I know now about niching down and finding the right people to work with, it might have been different, but it was at that time I was married, we were talking about having a family, and I was like, okay, I'm still surrounding myself with all of my passions. So for me, it wasn't only audio. It only has to be audio. I was for me, it was more about creative entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a thing that it takes people often a long time to identify that that's sometimes just what it is. I say that because I also feel like I'm the same way. Where I am not just video's the thing. No, it's not just the thing. It's a thing amongst several things that I'm balling all up into one thing that I'm making the big push with. Let's talk the artist development stuff a little bit. Right. I keep pushing getting to the video part further and further away, but I'm.
Everybody knows about that stuff though. If you really want to know,
right.
Google the video community and
yeah.
No, we'll talk about it. I'm sure. But.
So when you say artist development, what does that mean? So obviously you're recording them, but was it I want to take this further and really build them?
It was everything from creating their brand, so building their website, creating their logos, creating a marketing plan, telling them what to post and more so what not to post on social media. It was telling them what writer rounds to go to. It was telling them, hey, you want to make this a career. It was really like being their coach. It was if you're only going out one night a week to play, you're not going to make it. And, it was asking them a lot of questions hey, what's your end goal? Mm-hmm. Is it to play at the bars, a couple nights a week and just get some tip money and be really happy? Because you can do that.
Totally.
In almost any secondary city, even here in Columbus. You can come to Columbus and crush it as a musician if you know your niche. But like, if you want to be a pop star, a country music star, any national artist, like, you have to show the labels, you have to show the people who are going to invest in you that you're investing in yourself before they're ever going to look at you. And so that means going out 4 to 5, 6, 7 nights a week, playing anywhere that you can get in, and just doing that until somebody notices you.
How have we never talked about this before? Because
no idea.
Everything that you're saying up until, like, I would say, I mean, there's still obviously a lot of parts of it that are still in things that I do, but like everything that you're saying was like my hardcore passion up until like 2 or 3 years ago. Like, artist development was like the thing for me.
I love it.
100%. Everything you just described, I'm like, yep. The only thing I didn't know how to do was the audio engineering part. But I'd be the person who, like, I would go as deep as, like, a band that I was working with would show me a song. I would be like, add these parts of the song, take this away, blah, blah, blah. Not because it's like the music. I know the music. It was like, if you want this marketed in this way, this needs to happen.
Yeah, what's your goal?
And of course, I'm not a genius that I'm not sitting here like I made Justin Bieber huge. Like, clearly there's no like huge example of that, but that was like my hardcore passion for a long time. Even literally, like, that's what I dove into straight out of high school, was like, when I was doing the clothing line and all that sort of stuff, I was trying to like put myself into the music community, and my focus was always on like, hey, how can you make your band more of a brand? And you need good design and good visuals and blah, blah, blah. And of course, at some point, that's when Josh comes in and he's like, hey, I have a camera. And I'm like, whoa, we can make more things. And so, dude, everything you just said, like, I did not know how similar of a path that we were on at one point in time.
Dude, absolutely.
That is like, I would guess nearly the exact same thing we were doing.
Yeah, man, and I think I realized it in high school. It was like so frustrating to me that there were such talented people, and all they thought they had to do was be talented, and they could be arrogant, egotistical, narcissistic, and just, they thought everything else doesn't matter. I'm just so good.
Yep. Dude, there have been plenty of artists that I've worked with in the past that are just like, it's that classic, like, they act like they're owed something.
Absolutely.
And when it's like you're trying to help them get something, you're trying to like, hey, let's do this together. They're like, you're doing this for me. You work for me. And it's like, whoa, like, we're on two different wavelengths here. Like, I thought we were working together. But I also think like a lot of it too is like, I know a big thing that killed my passion for that stuff was two big things, honestly. One of them we kind of already talked about with the industry mindset. So the industry mindset of the music industry, which I would love to talk with you about. And the other thing was, I always realized, and this is, I feel like kind of what you were saying, I always realized I was probably 110 times more passionate about these people's projects than they were.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not me saying I'm a musical genius. It's not me saying I'm a creative genius or I know exactly what to do in the music industry. It's not that. It's the passion side is where I got so caught up, because I was like, you are so talented, but you're just missing these things, and I can't do everything for you. Sure, I can make the graphics. I can literally help you with social. I can help you with marketing campaigns. We can get you a music video shot, promos, like, I can do all that stuff, but I can't be the band for you. I cannot be you.
You can't change other people.
And that
as
was
much as you love them, and this is such a bigger conversation.
And that was this is honestly a big conversation that I want you to just open the floodgates on, because this is a huge conversation that is something that I have like struggled with for years, of always worrying about like not wanting to change other people into like my mold, but feeling like, it's kind of the very thin line of like, are you projecting your wants and needs onto somebody else? Like, are you seeing their potential, or do you want them to do what you want them to do? And I know that that's always a hard thing to balance. But I feel like in the last like couple years have I really been able to identify that and like ease off of things of just like, hey, you know what? I really care about this thing. I can tell you don't care the same way. That's okay. Where before I'd be like, no, but like, what about the heart and the passion and the goal and the dream? And like, dude, that is one of the biggest, again, the two biggest driving forces for me. Not, and this might be a bad thing to say that since we still shoot music videos and I still do a lot of content campaigns for artists, but those are two huge driving forces that have made me care significantly less about the music industry. The industry mindset, the gatekeeping, the incorrect way that I believe a lot of things are ran, and the just void of passion or real commitment in so many artists that I work with. I will stop ranting because I want to get your thoughts on this.
Man, I grew up with like, I don't know if you call it a sixth sense or like, I don't know where it came from, but the idea of personal power, and anytime like hearing people being like, oh, that's bullshit, you can't go after your dreams. Like, no, that's not actually a reality. I don't know why, but like that was one of my biggest pet peeves, and it still is today, when people use excuses for not getting somewhere or achieving their dreams or getting what they want out of life.
Yeah.
Because you're the only person that can make the change for what you want. And you can. You can achieve whatever it is that you set your mind to, but you have to be the one to choose to get there. And so like bringing it back to like the mentorship program that we have, it's like, man, if you don't have the mindset that this is going to be valuable for you, that doesn't bother me, because you have to make the choice. You know, as an artist, it's like, man, I would go out to every single write around with you. I don't care, because I love it and I want to see you succeed. But I think both of us, like, we've just been burnt out so many times by other people because we care about what they want more than they care about it. And so this might sound harsh, but like a tip, you know, if you call it, or a piece of advice, like if you're a creative person and you have that sense, you've got to shed the people around you who don't support that and who don't share your same vision, or else you are going to get burnt out and eaten alive, and all of the passion inside of you is just going to go away.
Dude, and I sit here now, again, still doing some work within the music industry, but finding what my level of involvement needs to be for me to still enjoy it. But I sit here being honestly an example of an incredibly burnt out person when it comes to the music industry, because I just got so drained from years and years and years of like, and it's my fault.
Absolutely.
100% my fault for never identifying like, wait, I'm caring way too much, honestly. I'm trying to get them to want the same thing that I want for them, and that's just not like, you got to figure out what do they need from you, what can you provide, where's the cutoff, where's just the thing we need to do, and that's it. Because 100%, dude, I literally, like, I would just go so hard on trying to, like, this sounds very, I don't want this to sound like overly confident or conceited or whatever the word is, but like, I just cared so much about all of these people and their goals. And I had fun trying to help them reach those goals and do all this visual stuff. Again, it's not about me knowing everything perfectly. It was about me caring about everything significantly more. And dude, it was just I think there was progress for a few years for sure. And I think at some point it was just a tire spin sort of thing where it was just like, I think I put a lot of energy into, here's the best way for me to sum it up. I put a lot of focus and energy into people's potential, not their actual like value. And maybe that's confusing in the way that I explained it, but like I would look at an artist and I would be like, there's so much there. It's not there right now though. And then I wouldn't look at the return of like working with them for 6 months or 2 years or 3 years where there was none of that potential being met. But I still clung on to the potential because that was so like, again, it's almost like that sixth sense sort of thing of like, I know it's there. I know that, like, it's almost like I could see a thing that no one else could see, but no one else would understand it when I explained it. And
Absolutely.
it's just, there was so much time and energy spent on doing everything I could to try and help all these different bands. And 100% disclaimer, I'm not going to say had they listened to me and did everything perfectly that it would have worked. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, from my point of view, the passion side, like, sure, it was awesome that honestly a lot of my freelance work over years and years have been from artists. I can't complain about that.
Yeah.
That's a part of what has kept me afloat over the years. Can't complain about that. But when it comes to the bigger picture, the end goal, what's the result that we want, there was never that conversation of like you said earlier. We as a band, me as an artist, whatever, do we want to just play some songs at the local bar once a weekend, get a cool payout, and we're good? If so, that's great, but you need to identify that. Or we want to be a growing artist through whatever scene and whatever genre of music, and we would love to one day be packing arenas with our music, with people singing along. We want to do whatever it takes to get there. Or is it somewhere in between? You know what I mean? You don't have to want to be the movie rock star. Like, it can be somewhere in between, but like that identifier of figuring out, what do we want this for? Because then you get doofuses like me who care so much, who pop up and will do anything for you, and then just get dragged along for years. And it's like, oh man, like,
why am I doing this?
Yes. And now I sit here with just this jaded view of the music industry. And I'm just like, I'm going to do...
It's not the industry's fault. It's your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I let myself get dragged along that whole time out of the belief that, like, no, this is great and it'll be this and it'll be that, rather than like making a different choice of like, earlier on I should have identified I'm giving too much to these people.
That's what
I'm giving, and it doesn't mean we're not friends, doesn't mean I don't care. No. It's just there should have been that identifier. And, you know, the other side of that, the industry mindset part that we keep bringing up is like, I don't know if you ever felt like you ran into anything like that in the music industry. I feel like I for sure have, where I think any industry is very cliquey. You're going to get the cool people, you're going to get the indie people, you're going to get the whatever, and if you're not a part of the clique, maybe you don't belong, or you made to feel like you don't belong. 100% the music industry is like that, no matter who wants to say it's not. And I feel like that was another thing that like immediately made me so jaded, was like, I'm like caring a lot about these things, and that's one thing with the artists. But then I would see so much of a lack of care from the business side of people in the music industry. And of course, I'm not talking about the Justin Bieber side of the music industry, folks. I'm talking about like the indie side, the whatever, the scene. But like, I would sit and again, it's the same thing that I felt with the artists. It's not that these people had to think or do the same way that I did. It's, well, you don't care at all. Like, you're literally just trying to rip this artist off. You're literally just trying to make a quick buck. You're literally just trying to not do whatever it is. Same thing can be said for the video community, the photo community, all that sort of stuff. But that was another side where I was like, man, like, I am dumping so much passion and energy into this thing called the music industry. And all these people like up here who could be those like next step ups of like, hey, we are peers, we are nice, let's work together as a community, let's build a stronger community and work together. It was always this like void of like, oh yeah, dude, hey, you're doing some really creative stuff.
Did you have anybody on the outside telling you like, hey, you need to shift your mindset? If you want to grow, you've got to stop relying on these people. Through
these times, no, because I was so surrounded, I was so engulfed in that community.
You were a product of your environment.
100%. It was just like, hey, we're all trying to be creative, and we're all, and like, oh, I saw what you did with that band, it's so cool. Not like, hey, is that band really like, dude, let's have a real talk for a second. Like, you're kind of, and not that they were purposely using me at all, but like, hey man, you getting used at all? Like, what's the goal? It was more so of that, like, that passion side where, again, from the industry standpoint, the people that had already made it up here weren't really looking, and I'm not saying everyone's like this, but same thing with video community, not yours, but the video community. There's a lot of people, when they make it to a certain point, they're not looking to give back to anybody. They're going to accept what they got when they got there. And they're like, dope, I did it. And sure, kid, I'll give you some advice, but I'm probably not going to answer that email. I'm not going to answer that text. I'm going to tell you you're good at what you do, but I'm honestly not going to give you a crap about it otherwise. I'm really not. And so it's just that endless loop of like, there was never like a light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing, which is just like, yes, let's strip that down and say, well, dude, that's just hard work. You got to keep working until you see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think the way in which that I was working and why I was working and my purpose, I kind of just think took me to like the deepest tunnel ever, where the light was like way down there. Where had I just been ripping bands off and honestly just like lying and kind of doing things just for money, I think maybe things probably would have turned out a little bit differently, honestly. I'd be sitting here less jaded on a podcast about the music industry.
But would you?
I guess who knows? It's who honestly knows.
Makes you wonder.
It does. But it's like, and I've taken us on such a tangent, but you got me so excited and fired up by saying that whole thing, because again, I think this all, like the reason I'm going on this rant is because it's not just about the music industry. It's about like all of this ties into everything we talked about at the open of the show. The reason of why the video community is existing, you're trying to build this coaching program, and you're trying to build like, yes, there's obviously a business side. You want it to do well. That's a default answer for anything.
Of course.
You want anything you do to do well. I want this podcast to be huge.
But that reason's not a big enough reason to do this day in and day out.
Exactly.
Until you don't know when, because you just love it.
Exactly. And so it's like, balling all that up, like kind of catching us back up here, like it's the reason I went on that rant is because it's a very similar thing to the video world, to the filmmaking world, to the photo world, the whatever. There's, again, in any industry, there's always going to be those cliques, the gatekeepers, the people who, honestly, I truly believe, like, there's a lot of people who don't want to see other people grow. 100%. Like, I won't pretend like that's not a thing. But again, just like we said, it's like you have to identify like when you're getting caught up in those things and what can you do to maybe make that change? What can you do? And I identified, like, I feel like, at least from the music industry standpoint, I feel like I identified that simply too late. When I felt like I could identify, like, wait, how can I really, like, again, the work that I do in the music industry now is maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I did identify what amount of energy I should be giving, and I did kind of do that.
Or maybe it's just a break.
And
I feel like I took a 3-year-long break.
Right.
And that's totally okay.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like it feels so strange.
It does.
To be totally engulfed in the culture of something for years, then again, personal
Stepping
experience.
out.
You step out because you had whatever experience you had with it, where you're sitting and you're just drained. That's the easiest way, and I don't know if that's how you felt. That's how I would explain my experience with the music industry is I don't hate it. I'm not angry. Jaded, probably a good bit of jaded in there. But I'm just drained. It just made me too tired. Like I gave too much to it. And it just drained me. So now it's like I just can't focus on that at all. Like I can give what I can give, what I still want to give, but I can't do what I was doing. And to catch us back up, I'm like making well and sure that I don't want to do that with the filmmaking world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I feel like it's so important for people like you and your guys' like brand and everything else, and anybody who's doing that, to build a better platform, build better avenues for people to not experience that draining feeling, to not experience like go super hard into that burnout where it's like, just like we were talking about earlier too, like had I just asked for help, had I just like maybe cleared out my path a little bit more. And it's a hard thing to do because when you're so passionate about something, you will sometimes blindly just jump into it. And I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with that, but I do think the tough part is when if you can't identify that you're kind of blindingly running through those things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
If you don't have a big enough why and a clear goal, with clear expectations, then in any world, even in the engineering world, you're going to get burnt out. You know what I mean? But it's so sad to see, like, man, go to any, not down in Starbucks, not down in any coffee shop. Like, those are great places, and especially now there's, like, super hipster coffee drinkers, and all about it. But like, we're putting on a virtual summit in a month or so, and like talking to all these tech companies to get everything set up, and like most of them are ex-filmmakers or ex-photographers, no call center reps. And like instead of a 15-minute conversation, we're having like 2-hour-long conversations with them about the filmmaking world or about photography. And it's like, this is exactly why we're doing this. Yeah. Because there's not a strong, supportive community that you can get plugged into and really rebuild your environment that you need to make your filmmaking a career, not just a pastime. Not just like, even the word freelance, like, oh, I'm a freelancer. What freelancer do you know that's like 56 and I'm still freelancing?
Right.
Not many, because it doesn't turn into a career. Whereas if you're a filmmaker, that's a career path. It just needs to be shown that it is a career path and it's a common career path. And there's a community of people who can help you, guide you through that and tell you, hey, if this is the area that you're looking to go down, like music videos, here's what I would suggest. Here are the key points that you should look at. Not that they're not going to get burnt out, not that they're not going to get jaded, but the chances are less likely, and they're increasing their chances for success, and not just in the short term, but like in the long term of their career.
I mean, it's the same thing for anything. Like, that's why, it's a big reason why this podcast exists, is to share stories of like, oh yeah, not everything's just immediately perfect for anybody who does anything at all. Especially like the 15-minute Fridays. Like, the 15-minute Friday versions of these podcasts aren't just so I can talk more with someone. It's not just so there's more content. It's so that way it's like, hey, does this topic interest you, listener or viewer on YouTube? Well, cool. I don't know. We're just going to talk about it. We're not saying we know everything, but we're just going to share our thoughts and opinions and whatever advice we can in hope that there's some sort of guidance given to you and some sort of thought-provoking thing given to you to make people talk about the stuff more, make people more open about it. You listen to a 15-minute Friday and you're like, I want to talk about that more. Great. Send a message to me or the guest or whoever, and let's talk about it. It's all about like helping maybe shape that path a little bit.
Absolutely.
Of, again, it's not just because, cool, we really like to hear ourselves talk. Let's make some more stuff, like whatever. It is about like trying to help other people build that foundation. And you said this earlier, it's like giving people things that you kind of wish you had on your way out.
Absolutely.
Or wish you had right now even. You know what I mean? It's like, I wish somebody would come along that's above me that would give me this, like whatever that next version is. But I'm going to give it to anybody else that I can right now.
Man, it's like anything that you give to hardcore in your life or like with an insane focus, you're definitely going to get more out of it than you think. Like, I feel like I'm being served more by our community, and I have more friendships now with filmmakers than I ever did in the past 10 years. So it's like...
Right.
It's not like I don't care if this doesn't, blow up or whatever, but it's like, it's helping people, and I know it's helping me in an unselfish way.
Yeah.
Like, it's a win-win-win. It's like, it's really building everybody up, and that's the whole goal. Like, that's the expectation that we've set for it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So I'm going to try and reel us back in here, catch us back up in the timeline. We went so far off. So how do we get to the Mark that's sitting here now? Because when we last left off, we were making the transition from college. We were still, we focused on the artist development side of things a little bit. We figured out that's not what we wanted. We figured out the agency side of things. We start delving into the commercial side.
Yes.
What is that transition like? Is it a seamless, like, dude, honestly, within a month, I had freaking 97 awesome paying clients. It was dope. Was it like, yeah, dude, a couple years of here and there stuff? Like, or was it, I went in with a plan and this is how it worked?
Man, I had no plan. I just had a bunch of passion. Like, everybody thought we were crazy. Wait, you're moving to Nashville. None of you have a job. One of you wants to start a business and build a studio. Like, all right, cool, guys. Like, I think my family looked at me and was just like, all right, whatever. That's just Mark. Like,
We've been trying to tell you for years, like, whatever, go do
Like,
your
all
thing.
right, you know, whatever.
Right.
And so I did the whole studio thing and got some, you know, smaller clients, and then just, man, randomly ended up getting a gig with Kroger down there. And I acted as their internal video department because
That's a wild random gig to
it's
get.
a wild random gig. It was like my wife went to a new Bible study, and somebody in her Bible study was their internal comm person, and she was just like, "Hey, like, you do video, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Great, can we meet? Can we do 3 videos a month for the next 12 months? Have you ever done a retainer?" And in my head, I'm like, no, but yeah, definitely. Yeah, like a retainer, and quickly
start?
Googling, like, what's a retainer? How much do I charge? Call my brother up, like, what's a retainer?
Incredible.
And so then that was like, oh, wow. Okay, great. Like, this is just the clear path. Like, and then, like, within a month, I moved out of the studio. Someone else took it over, and I just went video. And then I was like, all right, let's try to build a video agency. So then built that up for the next 4 years. And a year after that, we moved back to Columbus because we were pregnant with our first kid. And so we wanted to be closer to family, but I still had a lot of clients in Nashville, so I was traveling quite a bit. So I did that for a good, like, 2 to 3 years. And yeah.
So I'm going to interrupt you real
Go
quick.
for it.
Walk me through, like, because I feel like, honestly, this is a super valuable thing that when I hear podcasts say this, I'm always like, wait, stop and take a deeper dive. And I feel like it's a super valuable thing for people to hear. Walk me through, like, when you say you built up the agency over a couple years, what does that look like? What does that process look like? You know, it starts with Kroger, right? So we're like, okay, we've got kind of a little foundation here. We've officially decided that we're living in the video world now.
Yes.
What does, and use your own examples or use just whatever examples you want to give.
I'm an open book.
What's it look like to build an agency? And what does that mean? Is it building a team? Is it building a clientele base? Is it everything wrapped in one? Walk me through, when you say we built that agency up over a couple years, what was that period like? Was it difficult? Was it a seamless transition? Give me it all.
Man, it was a lot of fun. But I think you had the people and you had the clients. Like, the people that your team. You had your team and you had your clients. And like my first contractor employee, he was like just out of high school. He helped me build the studio. He literally lived in the house and just like came down one day and was like, "Hey man, you need any help?"
Amazing.
It was like, sure. And then that, you know, that transitioned into like he never operated a Mac computer, to like me teaching him how to edit. And then, you know, bringing on more people as I got more work. So it's like, okay, great. I got one like part-time editor and I got this Kroger gig. So we would both go out and I'd teach him how to shoot. And then we'd get, you know, some more clients, and then we'd be like, who else does video around here? Like, it was super scrappy. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't like glorious by any means.
Right.
But it was like, man, it's like starting a band, you know? It's like, you got a songwriter. Sweet, I can write some songs, but I'm terrible at singing. Let's go find a singer. Cool. All right, now people know his voice and they're writing my songs. Hey, we're a pretty good package, you know? And then you just grow bigger and you're like, well, we could use some percussion, you know? And like, someone's got to throw down that bass. Someone's got to like keep the financials in check and like, you know, just that consistency. And then, dude, you gotta get somebody that's booking your shows, because you can be a good artist, but if you're not booking a show, then all these people are just sitting here. So then, like, a year goes by, and it's like, okay, we've got like 7 or 8 pretty solid clients. It's like, well, you know, I've got some more money to play with. Let's see what we can do. So I hired 2 business developers, and they went to town. And it was like, we went from like 7 or 8 clients to like, I want to say like just over 100 clients in a year. But that's where like real world lessons started coming in, because like all of a sudden you're like a fun band playing 7 shows, you know, playing at the dive bars once a week, to like, you're working on projects 24/7. You have so much work and you don't even know if it's the right work. And you're working with so many people. Like, there's just so much going on that it's hard to discern, you know, like figure out what's going on here? What are we building? And going back to like what your why is. What's the expectation here? And I think at that point, growth just like consumed us in that way. And I think like we probably lost, I don't know, after that year, we were back down to like 20, 30 clients, but it was like, and I use that example a lot in our podcast, and just in our educational material, is like, you got to find your niche and you got to find your ideal client. And that was a big pain point, and it was a hard lesson learned, not one that was enjoyable at the time, but it was like, no, this is like real life of trying to grow a video agency at the age of 24. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like throwing paint at the wall and seeing what color looks good, Meanwhile, I'm traveling at least every other week between Nashville and Columbus, and flying out to different gigs, and like having babies and trying to manage everything at the same time. So, we kind of get to that point of like, okay, I had 2 kids. I'm in Columbus. I've had the agency for 4.5 years. We've kind of gone through these growing pains. We've had some people leave and take some clients. We've had new employees come in, trying to find our niche, trying to figure it out. But then, it's like we talked about like personal responsibility. You've got to take responsibility. This is what I love about entrepreneurship. It's all on you. You have to take responsibility. Even if it's somebody else, you hired them, So like, it was hard, but I've got to take the responsibility of like, I grew this agency from like a fun band that wants to go play at the dive bars to like this full-on act that didn't really know what its brand was. You know what I mean? All the while in my personal life, having a couple kids and wanting a big family, but like just assuming, well, that'll work out. My wife will take care of the kids, and she'll be happy, And like, it all kind of came together to this point of like waking up on my 26th birthday, like, whew, asking myself that question of like, am I where I want to be?
Yeah.
Like, is this what I wanted it to be? And it was such a clear answer of like, no. And I knew that I knew that for a year at least, or a year and a half, but I didn't want to make the change. And I don't think I had a couple good mentors, but like, I didn't really have somebody who was like asking the right questions, poking the right areas of like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, what's your thought process behind it? Because it's not that something's good nor bad. It's more, do you understand why you're doing what you're doing? What's the purpose behind it? Is it just to make money? Then you should create a business plan that's different, and serve your clients in a different way. Or, is your goal to be the most creative agency you can be and do work that nobody's ever seen? So then that should be the expectation of success. So like going through that whole, building of that agency, kind of back to your question, it was like, dude, it was a total shit show. But I loved it, because it was just like one big time of my life that I just got to try whatever I wanted and just mess up all the time.
Right.
And so then I got to that point of like, man, this is not at all what I want it to be. And if I continue doing this, it's going to only put me and surround me in places that aren't going to help me grow. It's like you do the same thing over and over, and the quote. I'm totally messing that one up. But like,
do the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
can't expect different results
You can't
trying the same exact process
Yes.
over. So,
and I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. So that doesn't, it's very helpful, but it's like I've got to
right.
I've got to rein that in sometimes.
Yeah.
100%. But so, I decided like, hey, I need to go a different direction with this agency. I can't be traveling every other week, having 2 young babies at home, wanting a thriving marriage, but never being home, and but rarely putting that time into that marriage and into that family. That was a big goal and dream of mine, when I have this business, but I don't know the why to it, and I can't quite defend it. anymore. So I got to make a change.
Right. And so that change was what? Just a completely shift in focus, or walk me through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if I recommend this to anyone, but like I just woke up and every birthday I go on a long run. Like that's what I ask of like my family now or like anybody I'm with. I'm like, no, I just want my own time. And I want to go on a really long run. It just clears my head and like that's just now what I do. And it was just so clear like, okay, I gotta make a hard change and I have to make a shift in my business from having a whole team to really just get back to myself and like figure out kind of like, you hear it all the time. And this is why, like I go back to like, if you don't want to make a change, if you're not ready, then you're just not going to do it. But if you are to the point that you know that you need to change, you're going to take the steps to make that change. And it's like I knew I needed 10 steps, 20 steps backwards to go forward. So I made a change, and I just dissolved the company and, started to do some freelance, but like immediately eliminated traveling. So all of a sudden, okay, sure, like it was a super hard change, but like immediately I wasn't on the road as much. Immediately I saw my kids more. Immediately my marriage got better. Immediately I had more like mental energy, physical energy, space to surround myself with new people, with new perspectives. And it was like instant growth, on that like sound wave chart. It's like instead of like slowly going down, it just shot up.
Man, I love that. And I feel like that's such a good perspective for people to hear, because that is, and whether you would want to phrase it this way or not, like the simplest way I can put it is like you kind of got your win. Like you won. Like you saw the green grass on the other side that you were like, that as soon as I get to that green grass, it's gonna be perfect. And then you got there, and then it was like,
is this it?
Yeah,
like
it was the classic,
it's
like,
exactly.
Oh, wait.
It was like, dude, that was my measure of success. Which just grow an agency. It wasn't like it was like, yes, we want to be nationwide and whatever, but like, holy cow!
Like, what was
I
the
did
real
like,
fulfillment? Then?
I grew in it. So then what? Like,
right.
I just wasn't. I wasn't personally fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
it's like, I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the business owner. I'm the one that started this.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I say that, like, I feel like that's so important for people to hear, is that, like, it's a thing that countless people get caught up in of again, being super passionate or goal-oriented or whatever it is, whether you're structured or just whimsically creative, whatever it is, and you get so deep into something, there has to be a point in time where not has to be, I suppose, but a lot of people run into that point in time where you have to reel yourself back in. And you're like, wait, I captured what I thought I wanted, but it doesn't feel like I thought it would, or it only felt that way for a little bit. So now, holy crap, what do I do? Because this was the end game. This was the thing that I wanted to get to. And now that I did, I need something to change now. And I feel like it's important for people to hear that. Again, a very specific example of building an agency, getting a lot of clients, building a team, whatever, profits, all this sort of business mumbo jumbo that you can throw around and be like, hell yeah, it was awesome. But it wasn't what it was supposed to be, or it wasn't what I needed it to be. And you figured out how to be where your intentions needed to be. And I think you also figured out where you needed to be present the most. You needed to be more present for family and for that goal that you wanted to see grow and what you wanted that to become. So it wasn't just this one-track mind thing of like the business and this is it and it's going to be perfect and amazing, and it's not really that great and perfect, but I got it to where I wanted it to be, so I have to pretend it is.
And yeah, and I think the difficulty as an entrepreneur is like, especially once you have employees, is like it's all on you, and you're employing other people. So like I can sit here and talk about how it was like one of the greatest lessons in my journey, and how now I have so many other mental practices that I do because of that moment, literally. But at the same time, like that doesn't dismiss the hardship that it takes as an entrepreneur to make a change like that, because it affects other people. Mm-hmm. And you have to be okay with that. Or at least you have to come to some sort of peace about that as an entrepreneur. you have to understand that if you don't take care of your own health first, eventually you're going to hurt other people. And it's just at what degree are you going to do that? So if you're not honest with yourself up front when you know you need to make a change and you just continue down that slope, like you are, the potential of making that change becomes harder and harder and harder because it's only going to have to be a bigger and bigger and bigger change.
Right. It's the classic, like every time you level up, there's going to be new and harder challenges in that.
So level up now.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. Like, don't wait. Like, the longer you wait to make a change, the harder the change is going to be and the more people it's going to affect. Like, whether that's you moving out of your small town to Columbus, or whether that's you even moving from inside the city to the suburbs, or whether that's you just shifting a position inside of a Fortune 500 company, or leaving a job. Like, the more you talk about it, and the less you do something about it, the less likely that it's actually going to happen. And
it just feeds back into that thing that I feel like we've said probably 100 times in this, but you're the product of your environment. You are what you allow yourself to be around. It's the classic, like, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most
100%.
time with. And that's, such a, again, none of what we're saying is like an easy, like, you won't care at all and you're not going to be worried at all, or it's not going to be scary at all. Like, clearly all of that comes with any sort of change or identifying of something that needs to be fixed or changed or whatever it is. But it does. It all feeds into that. Like, I feel like that's almost probably the biggest theme of this whole thing has been, like, being the product of your environment and being aware of, is this the environment? Like, I think I'm being myself, but how much of the, you can still be yourself, but the environment you're in are still going to feed into you somehow. You're still going to take things from it's the classic, like, at least now, a classic example of, like, people are like, oh my gosh, I scroll through social media and I hate it. Well, unfollow some things, curate your feed a little bit better. Like, you are choosing to watch those things. You are choosing to not unfollow those things. You are choosing to interact with that person who is maybe an anchor to you, and not figuring out what new form of friendship do you need with that person. Maybe it's 100%. Not what you thought it was going to be. You thought they were your best friend or your best business partner or the most creative person you knew, and then you found out that maybe is a little bit different, and that's okay.
It's 100% okay.
But you have to determine what you're going to allow yourself to absorb from that.
Yes.
How are you going to let that affect you?
I mean, yeah, here's, like, my personal belief is this, like, I came from a creator who created me to create. So I have a duty in my life to create and to be my authentic self when I create. If I do not do that, not only am I not serving the one who created me, but I am not serving those around me. In fact, I'm hurting those around me because I'm hiding the creativity that was inherently in me.
I don't know I don't even know what to ask you to try and top that, or I can't. I'm not going to go on another music industry rant. That for sure.
I'll just go on a rant. Like,
I love that, man.
I'm a very decisive person, and I don't know where that comes from, but, like, it crushes my soul to see people not make decisions that I know. And, like, going back to artist development, like, I know there's a high percentage of a chance that this is going to make you happier if you make that decision, but you choose time and time and time and time again not to. So that's what I mean. Like, if you see that around your environment, if you want to grow, you have got to set boundaries with that person or with those people or with that group or with that community. It doesn't mean they're inherently bad, but, like, if you want to grow, you have got to be intentional and understand that you are a product of your environment and surround yourself with an environment that's going to push you to be your true, creative, authentic self so that you can thrive.
I feel like you're giving me a motivational. So I'm like, oh, yes, I know what to do now. Dude, I love it.
That's what we're doing, man. Like, that's what the video community is. It's a place for you to only thrive, and we're going to call you out. Like, you're going to get called out. You go to any of our mentors, and, like, they are at the top of their game, not only in their niche as a technical filmmaker, but they're at the top of their game in their niche as a mindset worker. Mm-hmm. It's like our business is not just, hey, how to be more cool on YouTube. Like you can Google that. You can watch so many YouTube videos and be the coolest YouTube person, but if you're not learning the mindset that it takes to get to where you want to be, then you're going to get burnt out. You're going to surround yourself by people who are really going to frustrate you because you're putting yourself in a lesser position and a lesser place to actually truly understand who you are and what it is that you need to thrive.
I love it. Dude, so good. So, okay. You answered another question that I was about to ask right there. So, before we officially start to wrap up, we've already gotten up there in time.
Man, I was just warming up.
We made it happen. So, let's talk to the person, and literally, even if this is just you rehashing some stuff that we've already said, that's totally fine. But talk to that person right now who's listening to the podcast, who, we're not necessarily like, I'm not going to say like, oh, they are a filmmaker, but maybe they're a creative, or maybe they're an entrepreneur type, or they're just somebody who wants to figure out how to get started in anything. And they're hearing all these sort of things, and they're like, okay, I just need like one main piece of advice. What is the lasting thing and advice that you would give that person or those people when it comes to that field of things? Like you sit you down and they're like, Mark, cool, you got all these coaching things going on, and I'm going to be a part of the video community. That's awesome, and all this sort of stuff. But what can you tell me right now that I need to try and identify, or how can I just get started or make the change that I'm just unsure or afraid that I need to make?
I'd say like figure out where it is you want to go, and not necessarily in a big life phase. Like, oh, okay, eventually I want to be married and have this many kids and this kind of business. Like, just in the next year, or next 6 months or next 2 years, like whatever it is that you're comfortable with, go inward and think about like, what would make me happy? Like visualize that and like spend some time trying to understand what it is that you enjoy. Like I love running. There's not a lot of people who understand it, and you know what? So I get involved in a running community that will go out and run ultra marathons, and everybody else looks at us like we're crazy, but we don't care because that's our thing. For some reason, that lights us up. And so when I go do that, it lights up every other area of my life. So like I've learned ever since I shut down the agency, like, man, running has been a big part of my life. And when I run more, I get more happiness, and I'm more joyful, and I'm able to love better. I'm able to serve other people better. So like find one thing, whether it's painting, whether it's video, but like for me, it's exercise. It's like finding an activity that has nothing to do with my family, nothing to do with work, nothing to do what I used to know of, or like that takes me someplace where I feel better, where I feel really good. Kind of like Nirvana, like people are like, oh, that's bullshit. But like, I'm serious. Like, and runners know it. Ultra marathon runners, it's like the first 8 miles could totally suck. But if you're doing a 50K, it's like, man, you hit mile 18, sometimes 22, and it's like you are in the zone, and there's like nothing else, and you're just like, you're floating. It's like, I know I've shared these conversations with other people who find other hobbies, or find other passions, and they just dive into them. You don't need to know everything. Like, my running form probably sucks. Like, I just went to the chiropractor, and they're like, how are you running 20 plus miles and you're not in pain? Like, your hips are like all over the place, so it's like,
right.
It doesn't have to be perfect, but find something that you can do short term that will help you, achieve that goal. Like, and if you don't know what that goal is, go out and what are you passionate about? Just go do that more.
So one more thing I want from you. Let's talk to the person who is hearing about the video community. And I'm talking your video community, not the video community at large. They want to get involved. They want to know maybe what is it really about? I've heard you guys are talking about all these different things, but I just need one concise answer of what the video community is. Somebody wants to get involved in that, learn more about it. Throw all that out there for them. What would you say to welcome somebody into the video community if they're looking to maybe check it out?
Yeah, I mean, we're here to empower filmmakers to grow their business through community. My goal is like whatever your lifestyle is, you join our community and you're going to find a place here and a mentor, like whether it's part of our official program or just part of our free community, you're going to find somebody that you're going to align with your goals. Like you're going to find me I'm going to have my 4th kid in May, and I'm a full-time filmmaker. That's what supports my family. And like, it works really well. Or you're going to find the creative that is doing YouTube videos and he's 22, like you're going to find such a variety of filmmakers inside of our community. And our whole goal is when you come in, we want you to grow. Like, we don't want you to be stagnant. We don't want people who are just like, well, let's just see, like, it's like, no, I want to be very intentional with you. And if that means, like, call me, literally email me, message me, whatever, like, I will literally talk to anybody to help them, because that is the whole reason why we created it, why I created it. It's like, let us help you understand a pathway to make this a full-time career and not just a hobby and not just like, oh, something you can do on the side.
So whether it's you individually, maybe even outside of the video community brand, what's the impact that you want to leave in the filmmaking world or in anything?
Yeah.
What's like the impact that you want to leave?
I want to create a new generation of filmmakers that understand that it's community over competition. That the more that you can bring people together and work together on projects, the better your projects are going to be. The bigger that you're going to grow your career. And ultimately, the more satisfied and fulfilled you're going to be with the work that you do. And so your whole life is going to be better. Because what I've realized, and I know it's not just in my life, but for a lot of creatives, like, it's really hard to try to understand that balance of your work-life passion and your home life passion. And how do you integrate the two? And that's really big for me, and that's what I talk about a lot, because I've got 3 kids and, a wife, and we're due with our 4th soon. And like, if we did not work together as a couple, if we did not work together as a family, then it's really hard to get my passion and my work to work really well. And so it's really combining your whole life in a holistic viewpoint to work together, to grow together, and to really get to that place that you want. And that place is different for everyone. That success metric, But that's where you got to define that. You've got to set a clear expectation for yourself. This is where I want to get to. And so for us, it's creating a new generation of solopreneur filmmakers who have a sustainable career in filmmaking, not just a one-off.
Last 2 questions.
Great.
I promise I'm going to stop throwing you random questions. But you just keep making me think of other things that I want to hear you say. So, I've honestly never asked something like this. It's been asked on other podcasts, so this isn't an original question. But I really want to ask you this. If you were able to time travel back and see young Mark at any point in time, so I'm going to let you choose the time that you go back to, but what would you tell, what advice, what would you say to young Mark, and where would it be?
Man, that's a good one.
I didn't make it up. That's from another podcast.
I've heard it too. And that's like,
but honestly, I always wonder about asking that. But I don't know. I want to ask you that.
Ooh. Drop the feeling or the sense that you have to be someone for someone else, and be the person that you want to be for you. be selfish in that sense. Like, be selfish in going after what you desire first, and then you're going to have so much more to give and to serve everyone else. Even though, like, I know I had an intention of always serving other people, but it was always like placing their needs before your own. When I would tell young Mark, like, if you don't serve yourself first, you are going to get burnt out. You will get burnt out. So, serve the desires of yourself. Obviously, I'm not saying, like, if your desires are evil, like, go and do that.
Course,
but, like,
of course.
From a creative perspective,
We're not turning young Mark into a murderer.
No. We could get into a murder podcast after this.
Do you know things about murder? Do you like murder? What does it have you murdered?
I don't know. My wife listens to murder podcasts all the time.
I'll listen. We will do a whole other podcast about any true crime, anything. You want to take it paranormal? I'm there for it.
Conspiracy theory.
Listen. There's so many times I've had somebody on this podcast and they joke about a conspiracy podcast. I'm like, listen, I love any conspiracy, even if they're blatantly. I'm like, that's so stupid. I love all of them. I'll talk about all of them.
I'll watch all the Netflix documentaries.
100%. I'll go down the YouTube rabbit hole at least once a month and be like, wow, that was fascinating.
Yes.
And then they're in my recommended for the next 6 months. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that right now. Okay. Final question.
Okay.
And then I promise we're wrapping up.
So that means like 2 more questions.
That means like at least like 6, 7 more questions, a couple tangents, So last question that I always ask on this show. I want you right now, pretend that microphone is connected to everyone in the world. Doesn't matter where they're from, doesn't matter where they're at, language barriers don't matter, none of it. They can hear you, they can understand you. That mic is attached to every single person everywhere. What are you sharing with them? What is it that you're going to say to everyone that's listening to you right now?
Be your authentic self. Because that is the greatest impact that you're going to have on the world in your lifetime that you're here for however long that you're here. You're going to find the greatest joy, and you're going to be able to spread the most love if you are your authentic self.
Love
what
it.
I got for you.
Dude, that was great. Seriously, I am so happy that we finally made this happen.
Yeah.
That was a great conversation.
Dude, we should start an artist development company together.
You know what? Listen, now you're reeling me back in just when I think I got away. I'm getting real. I was sitting here and I'm like, I gave so much to artist development. I'm angry and jaded.
You just did it the wrong way. It's like video, man. I had to take 3 years off to realize, like, no, it was me.
I had to step away the wrong way. I'm getting reeled back in.
Dude, now I'm crushing video. I think we could bring back artist development and crush artist development.
Oh, man, that's such a good conversation. Well, folks, might be starting an artist development agency after we get off this podcast. So, I don't know. We'll see. Mark, before we start that agency, right, before we start the artist development, have something else to plug. Toss out all the plugs and promos that you want right now. Tell people where they can check out the video community, the podcast, the coaching program. If you want people to check you out on the internet, any of your work, whatever it is you want to promote, tell the people where they can find them.
At the video community or thevideocommunity.co. Don't put the M on there. It's some Ukrainian company. We're trying to buy it. No luck. But at the video community and thevideocommunity.co. I have my own Instagram. I haven't posted once in 2020. I don't really use it for business, so not much there to check out. Maybe if you want to message me, like, I use Instagram, so I'll communicate via it. My wife and I send memes back and forth.
Perfect. Send them a meme.
But that's it. We're doing I don't know, when is this coming out? When are you launching this?
What is it right now? At least the next month or two.
Okay.
For sure. So next handful of weeks.
I mean, if you follow us on social media, you can go to our website, give us your email, we'll update you on our podcast, The Ambitious Filmmaker. It's on every podcast place. Check out the Ross episode.
Hey,
That's
another
great.
plug. If you didn't get enough of me talking here, listen to Mark and I talk somewhere else about other things. Dude, is that
That's
it?
it, man.
We do it?
I think that's it. Like,
Nice, man.
We've got some really exciting things coming through the pipe. So you'll hear it if you follow us. I don't want to timestamp this, but
Of course.
we've got a lot of big things on the horizon that we're super excited about, and yeah, things are grooving.
Wonderful, man. As long as you guys don't shut down a week from now, this promotion will make sense on this podcast, so people can. Whoa! Uh-oh!
Hey.
Somebody's making us shut this down right now. All right, dude. Well, seriously, I love everything that you guys are doing with Video Community. I think the goal is awesome. Clearly, we just spent almost 2 hours talking about how communities could be changed and people's mindsets need to be shifted and all that sort of stuff.
Only if they want it to be shifted.
Only if they want it to
You
be.
can't change somebody that doesn't want to change.
Yes, that is one of the biggest lessons I think we can take away from this episode.
Oh, we could keep going.
Dude, there's another 2 hours worth of conversation here, 100%. Maybe I have you back for a part 2 at some point.
Are we going to do a 15-minute Friday?
Or a 15-minute Friday. If you want to do some 15-minute Fridays, I would love to do that. We just have to take all of our points and smash them down into...
Oh, I got a couple.
Beautiful. Well, then, hey, you know what? Maybe we'll make that happen.
All right.
So, folks, look out for a future 15-Minute Friday. Mark is going to return, but for now, that does it for this episode. Dude, seriously, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
That was fun.
This is great.
Dude, we're done.
Sweet.
That's it, man. That was seriously a blast.
Yeah.
That was... All right, hope you guys liked that one. It was really nice sitting and really getting to hear Mark's story. As so many times before this when we've talked, it's always been more like so strictly about business-oriented things. So it was fun to take a different type of a dive and a swerve, honestly, in this conversation that I did not see coming. We even talked about what's wrong with the music industry. I seriously didn't have any clue that we'd go there, but I love that we did, because honestly, this jaded fellow here is never going to pass up an opportunity to rant about the music industry. But anyway, lots of fun in this one. Obviously more focused in the world of video business, but a lot of good stuff in here in general, just about life and business itself and personal development. So if you want to hear more of Mark and the rest of his crew, go check them out. Make sure to check out their podcast. You can check them out online at The Video Community. Yes, it is truly that simple of a name. Look it up. You'll be able to find all the cool content they've been making, as well as their podcast that features many amazing conversations just like this one, but even more specifically in the world of video and creative business. So if you're looking for more content like that, I implore you to go check it out. The floodgates of information have officially been open for you. And if you do want to take an even deeper dive into those things, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you to check out the mentor program that they're building over within TVC. Lots of talented individuals are becoming a part of that, all with different styles of coaching and things they focus on, all centered around how you can grow to better yourself and your creative business. So that'll do it. Make sure to check out all of that stuff. I think it's awesome what Mark and people like him are aiming to do in the video world and in the creative world or the business world in general, and that is to truly try and do, what their brand is named after, and that's build a video community that can truly help people grow however they can. So let's wrap it up. Of course, the last bit of normal formalities here. Follow us on social at WYDHpod. Subscribe, rate, review, shout us out, share it around. Most importantly, maybe, tell a friend. Tell a friend when they say that they've listened to all the episodes of Poltergeist. Let them know about this new podcast right here. So until then, I will see you next time. As always, the Monday after next, I'll be back to gift you another brand new episode with someone you may or may not know of, with a story that you've for sure never heard.